choices, dilemmas, problems.
Please, I have catnip and a sexy lady cat. I can get through your cat defense. I've been training for this for the past 20 plus years.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 522. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Dance and Pit.
Hello.
Baines isn't here because he's got stuck in his fursuit and could not escape it. Unfortunately, that happens. You know, zips are really hard to manage, especially in a really good kind of customized fursuit that he's wearing. The zip goes all the way around, and your bits get stuck. Unfortunately, especially if you're not wearing anything underneath your fursuit, which tends to happen because it gets so hot in those things. You guys know, just like a sock full of sweat, basically. So we're all sitting in our fursuits at the moment. No, we're not. We don't. None of us have. Unfortunately, none of us have them. Baines does have like a wolf head. Remember that one? That he did use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suspect Baines has got the full suit somewhere. So this week we're talking about the fate of a Drunkducker who is also a politician in America in the town of New Milford, I think. And his downfall due to his being a furry and that being uncovered and used against him in a smear campaign and stuff related to his profile, which is really interesting. But before we get into that, I have to bring up the featured comic this week. QUACKCAST is going to tell us all about Shualo. So, Kwai, tell us about Shualo.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Shu Halo, The Balance Overture by Ma Gran, and it is rated M for mature. In an alternate universe called Azeroth, an unknown force began to exterminate every life form. Entire races and civilizations were wiped out quickly. The ones that fled did survive by adapting to live underground for 100 years. However, dark entities certainly live among the living. The comic is mostly drawn in black and white and colored digitally, in grayscale and splash pages in full color. The English version of the comic is written in English and Japanese, and there is a Spanish version written in Spanish and Japanese. Go back to the original Azeroth and read Shu Halo, The Balance Overture by Ma Gran, rated M.
That was Kwai reading her feature, which was Shu Hello. So I hope you enjoyed that particular feature, or have read it. It looks like a really interesting cover anyway from what she picked. It's pretty cool. Okay, so next up we have the featured music. This week Gumwallace has given us a theme to Stickman and Cube. Simple, lo-fi, like a careful stepping dance between two partners competing with their moves. First one has a go, then the other. Then they start complementing each other's movements with their own and eventually dancing together in a single unified performance. So take it away, Gumwallace, with Stickman and Cube. was our featured music. Gumulus playing us Stickman and Cube. Stickman and Cube is a comic by Pie Guy 259. I wonder what the 259 stands for. Rated T. Okay, so Grey Muzzle, author of the comic Tina's Story, of which Gumwallace did a fantastic theme. I love Gumwallace's theme for Tina's Story. It's one of my favourite pieces of music that he's done. It's really delicate and lovely and cool. I only discovered the comic because of Gumwallace's theme to it, which was really impressive. And it was such a shame to learn that Tina's Story had disappeared from the site. You know, absolutely disappeared. And I thought, oh my god, where did it go? And yeah, so this is the story of what happened to Tina's Story, I think. So, to give it a bit of outline, this fellow, Grey Muzzle, what is his real name? Chamberlain or something? I'm not sure. I have to scroll back to the top of the article.
We're really good at this.
Yeah, we're pretty shit at our investigative journalism. So, Scott Chamberlain. So he was a New Milford Town councilman, which is, you know, some sort of politician in the US. I don't really know how to understand the American local political system and how that works. It's quite different from what we've got in Australia, but it's not like so in Australia when we have councils, like they're town councils and things, and they're not rated very highly, you know, in the political scale. You know, if a councillor had a scandal, no one would really care, mostly because they govern very, very small, you know, kind of communities within bigger communities. But I imagine in the US that councilmen are quite a bit more important. They have more political responsibility for larger areas, pretty much. Is that right, Pitt? Do you know?
Sure.
You don't really know either. Well, let's go by my knowledge of Parks and Rec. The councilmen, at least in that TV show, have these... their political like path can take them a lot higher, it seems, from at least what I've seen in that TV show. I don't know how accurate accurate a reflection it is of the American political system, but I imagine it's not too far out. So yeah, it's to be a councilman in the United States is a little bit more important than it is in, say, in a lot of other places, or at least in Australia anyway. And they are part of the political parties as well. So in Australia, if you're on a council, you're not really in a political party. You're always independent. But in the States, you are, you know, a political representative. So this guy was a Democrat and a very outspoken one as well. And he was so outspoken that he campaigns to get rid of the Democrats who are already in charge, because he thought, you know, they weren't left-wing enough. So he took over in this fantastic political coup, and became, you know, the new representative for this area, and made the place, you know, properly representing the ideals that, you know, he thought they should be representing, you know, more liberal and more kind of open to different ideas. And you know.
Well, I think that they were still mostly Republican. I wouldn't call that a takeover, but
well, he was taking over from the Democrats that were there before. I mean, is that
understand.
what you meant?
No, I was just clearing up what you meant.
Oh, all right. No worries. No worries. Yeah.
You're doing good.
Well, like I say, I don't really understand the American political system that well, so it's quite alien to me. Yeah. So he was doing very well in that position for many years. He was a 63-year-old guy, so he'd been doing it for quite a time. But he had this online persona, fursona, as Grey Muzzle. And it wasn't just, something he did online. He went to furry conventions. He had a fursuit. He had a Twitter account. He had this adult comic where he was the author and someone else was the artist. Drunkducker. Like, he was a member of our site. He was one of us.
Yeah. And he wasn't secretive about it either.
No.
It was all public.
Yep.
We had, well, not we, but there was a furry in public service, and I think it's pretty cool. I mean, people are allowed to have diverse interests. I think that's cool.
Very much so. Yeah. And go for it, man. Let your fur flag fly. And that's what he was doing. But unfortunately, in one particular political campaign, his opponents decided to use this stuff against him because furriness does have its. I don't know if it's a dark side. It's not really. That's a bit of kink shaming to call it a dark side, but it does have a. There's a
reputation.
Reputation. There's sexuality involved for some people, and well, obviously his comic is an adult comic, so there's sexuality there. It's not hidden. Anyway, so they used that against him. And I think the starting off point, as we discussed in our Patreon video, was that part of the tags of the stories that he, on the particular site, I think it's like Fair Affinity, something like that. You have tags of the kind of stories that you will read and stuff associated. And one of the things said tolerate rape. And yeah, like Pitt said in the video, out of context, that's awful. But in context of if you've got something that if you've got a bunch of tags that will block certain stories and will allow certain stories, what that would mean. So if you had like Game of Thrones or something like that, if you had that kind of tag, that would allow Game of Thrones to be seen, to be in among the selection of stories that would be offered to you in the search engine or whatever, because Game of Thrones features rape, and like the girl with the dragon tattoo, those kind of things will, as Towns, brought up that particular movie. So those kind of things will be allowed to be shown because that is a tag associated with them. So anyway, so that's the kind of function it had. That's how we believe it to function. But what his opponents did was they used that against him, saying, oh my god, this man tolerates rape, this man's basically a sexual freak, a deviant, look at the proof, he dresses in a fursuit, he's part of this community, he attends fur conventions, he has an adult comic with a furry character who has sex with her partner. That's this man is not someone you'd want in charge of children, all this kind of bullshit. So his online life was used against him, which is like really scary in a way. I mean, I suppose we've always been thinking that say if any of us ever became a politician and we're thinking, oh my god, people will use our online stuff against us. We don't want to be associated with stuff because like stuff can sort of reflect negatively on us, but to actually have this actually happen in reality and in this day and age. This happened in like 2018, I think, so 3 years ago, but still that's that's in the modern day, and you think people are a lot more tolerant of this kind of thing now. We don't kink shame as much and all this stuff, but that has happened, so that's scary. As a Drunkduck, as an author of a comic, what would you do if your work was used against you? if they pulled it out
Yeah.
of context.
Especially since, especially the younger people are now, that's the more of their lives that are going to be spent online.
Mm.
And so that's more of a history of yourself that you're putting out there. And you're not going to find anybody who's squeaky clean, really, unless they just don't really put themselves out there that much. You have to take everything in the context that it's in. And it's just, my impression of it is that it was a shitty political tactic used during a race. And when it was done, you could look this up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt that the topic of rape was ever brought up again. It's just kind of, it's very petty and flimsy and feels very much like, once the race is done, it's a issue that stops mattering, which is like, that's the real crime. That's the real letdown. If you really cared about rape, I don't know, do things to raise awareness about it, or ways that we could help keep it from happening and stuff like that. Once this kind of thing is settled, once this guy stepped down, the topic shouldn't die. It should evolve into something that's actually useful and helpful. So,
yeah, it's quite criminal to pretend that you have an interest in that, like, pseudonym, or to pretend you have an interest and just hijack people's concern for that kind of stuff in order to cynically use it and then not actually do anything about it, which means which means you're not treating it with the seriousness that it deserves, and you're actually doing something worse because you're absolutely not doing anything good for it at all. You're treating it like just a tool, like a joke. So yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go on, Tom.
No, I was saying that they also, like, the whole rape thing aside, it sounds to me that they were also using something that is obscure and people wouldn't really know about it, to present it in a way that sounds really horrific and problematic and criminal or deviant or whatever, which happens and is very easy to happen with a whole lot of things. And it is unfortunately a tactic that is age-old. Like anything that you don't know, or anything you bet that your audience will not know, you use against the person who does it or is a member of it or whatever. So to answer the question of what would happen if my art was used against me, what would happen is I would very ferociously defend it and go on the attack, in the sense that depending on how the attack was done, unless it was something like, how dare she make art, this is so shitty, like she's not a real artist, or like, whereupon I would say, this is irrelevant to our political, debate on whether I am a good artist or not. But if we move from there and they try to use it against me, I would take the angle they were using and I would apply it to them as well. And I would actually seek to have them measured by the same rod, because everyone does things that the main population is not necessarily very familiar with. Just look at, styles of music, genres of music, or types of video games, or I don't know, very weird collecting, or what have you. People tend to have mainstream interests, but mostly they will also have interests that are not as common and as prevalent in the mainstream, and that is very normal. So, yeah, what I would do would be to underline this very, very much, and then do whatever I can to initiate as many people as possible to webcomics, because that was used against me that I can imagine. So
Yeah,
yeah,
get them all in the
that
fold. Get them to be supporters and
exactly.
readers. Use it to
Yeah,
sell your comic. That would be a good idea.
exactly. I would say, you know what? Thank you for the plug. Please go read my comic, form your own opinion, and we will be here to discuss the things that you get from it and stuff like that. I would get so many hits. So
This is the start of your political lifetimes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a damn good idea. Like, I would go full on bottomless waitress and just say, yeah, I do this. So what? We are now the bottomless political party, and I am riding on the bottomless ticket.
Yeah.
And everything's gonna be
We are
themed around that.
the commando party. Everyone go commando. That's the
Exactly.
theme of the comic.
We'll have bottomless coffee and just bottomless tea, and everything's gonna be bottomless. Bottomless pits everywhere.
Come for the coffee, stay for the pits. Yeah, don't worry, your scandal will come in, Oz. I can smell it in the air one of these days.
I'll be ruined. But yeah, this. I think initially he did try and own it, but it's very hard to do that against the tide of public opinion, because once things are sort of turning on you, it doesn't matter how hard you try and own it. If you haven't got enough people to vote you into the position, then you become a liability to your party. So they're going to drop you. They're going to drop you. They're just going to say, look, sorry, you're going to have to step down because we don't want to lose this, this position. So we're going to put someone else in who hasn't got this baggage. So see ya.
Yeah. And it sounds like towards the end what he was saying was that and keep in mind too, like, he's not an old man, but he's an older man, maybe politics by then has just become a game that's too just too much when it gets like this. And it sounded like by the end that, he decided to choose his community, which I understand. I wonder though, well, I was going to say, I wonder why he went and took his stuff down anyways, but maybe his family was being harassed or something. Maybe he's just moved it to something that's a bit more within the community. But
yeah.
I don't know, but they're furry sites though. So, yeah, I wonder why he took it down anyway.
But, maybe he took the comics to something like, a more private kind of platform. It's not public.
Yeah.
Like Drunkduck was.
Yeah.
So it's like over 500 pages. It was a long bloody comic. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, this was a big work. And it was well done too. I mean, I had only gotten it because Gumwallace did the music for it. And the music was so good, and this was a featureable comic. I don't think I had featured it. I don't think I featured it because I think it was A-rated, but I will check, actually. I'm going to check now. So it might not have been A-rated. It may have been, one of these kind of on the border ones. So I will have a look in the feature comic section. Do my own bit of research. Tina. No, it wasn't featured. Well, there we are. But still, it was, worthy of a feature. It was that good. It was a good, damn good work. And
Maybe you can feature it posthumously. Well, he's not dead, but you know what I mean.
I wish I could, but he's taken off the site, so I would be. It would be immoral for me to. It'd be unethical for me to undelete the comment.
Yeah.
So, Chance, you were saying?
No, I was going to make a joke, and now the moment has passed. So.
Just Banes it. Go for it.
No, not that good.
Because he always does that. He always brings up the joke, like a minute later, 2 minutes later, and it's still as funny. So.
You know what? He's so quiet during the cast, but still, I miss him.
Still, I miss him. I miss Banes.
Where has my Banes gone? He has gone down the drain.
Oh no.
Well, yeah, he is the life of. He's the beating heart of the QUACKCAST. You don't always
That
know.
said, the party probably lost a big opportunity, in the sense that there is, like, as I understand it at least, there is a huge furry community. He could get in all those votes.
All the furry votes.
If they lived in New Milford, yeah.
Yeah.
He could make a furry commune out in New Milford.
Exactly. Attract them there. Be Furtopia. Have a massive furry convention out there.
Exactly. And then, do a fundraiser for the party. By all...
Yeah. Awesome.
A fur raiser.
A fur raiser. That sounds like a horror movie. Fur raiser.
And I'm sure it is. It's probably like a Hellraiser porno or something.
Exactly. If you open the haunted fursuit, if you manage to somehow to open it, oh my god, the lament configuration.
Such sights to show you.
Nothing, no pleasure, only fur.
Only sweat. Oh jeez. But yeah, the fur community produces some really, really cool comics, and their only thing is that their characters are anthropomorphic animals. Sometimes not even, they are animals who just have human emotions and like thoughts. But yeah, in most of it, they are fully anthropomorphic, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's been around for a long time too, at least since like the 70s.
Yeah. And in a way, I mean, don't you have all sorts of children's movies with anthropomorphic animals?
Disney made their
where a lot of it comes from, I think.
Disney invented it pretty much.
Yeah. I think that's what inspires a lot of it. We see like cartoon animals or anthropomorphic animals growing up, and you kind of identify with them and stuff. And so people get crushes on them and all sorts of things, and that's fine. The furry community has a reputation, and I'm not within that community, and I can't say what's true, what isn't, but it's a large community. So I imagine there's bits of lots of things, just like in all sorts of communities. I don't know. Don't be a dick to somebody just because of they're part of a community. If you know they're enabling something or doing something that's wrong, then yeah, go at them. But no, just
Yeah,
don't be a dick to people.
That's true. I mean, and it doesn't matter if there is a sexual element to the furry community because they're
Oh,
adult people, and adult people are allowed to have sex without being criticized or made fun of or demonized. That's a natural part of life. It doesn't matter if someone dresses in
yeah.
a furry suit or a leather one or even no clothes. It doesn't matter. It's all the same.
And
Hmm?
considering how many people have quote unquote kinks and they dress up in different things, it's a bit rich, like hypocritical to judge others because what they wear happens to have fur. It's like, oh, is it okay if it has lace and garters, but it's not okay if it has, a tail. So,
Yeah. And for the people out there that are like, well, does that mean that you like to have sex with your dog? Like, okay, that's a fucking leap. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference. That's bestiality, and if
yeah,
somebody is doing that, then it needs to be called out. And I know that there's been a couple scandals with some people that were doing really terrible things in the community, and there has been some backlash because I guess I don't know, it wasn't treated as severely by the community as it maybe should have been. But there could be lots of reasons for that. But again, it's a huge community, and it's, you're going to have people doing terrible things in all sorts of communities. Call it out when it happens. Try to separate those people from your community, but as at the same time, don't label everybody in that community as being,
yeah.
going to the animal shelter and eyeing who has the sexiest hind legs. I don't know. That was really sick. That was really stupid. I'm sorry.
The thing is that when you have people with paraphilias, which is basically all the sexual deviance that involves very nasty stuff like bestiality and pedophilia and all sorts of things like that, they will, like, they are predators in a sense, so they will go where the prey is. They will not go where prey usually does not, frequent, to a place that their prey wouldn't be. It's only not natural. I'm saying that it's cause and effect. So, of course, you're going to have the deviants that match the particular circumstance. In the same way that you don't have, like if we go in other types of deviances, I'm trying to think of one. Like, for example, let's say arsons. Someone that is an arsonist is not going to try to set a fucking concrete thing on fire. They're going to go to the wall to do it. So the pattern is that they go where it will be the easiest for them to satisfy whatever the thing that they want is easiest to satisfy. Like I'm rambling, but I hope I'm making sense. So, yeah, of course, there will be deviants, but those are deviants and they are called deviants for a purpose.
Yeah, well, it's a big world and there's deviants for everything, and it makes sense. There's going to be a few in every community. It's hard to knock those out. Like Pitt said, it comes down to when you find them, how do you deal with them? And that's the important part.
You know what the problem could be, though? And because I have seen that in niche communities where they feel that they're not understood by the mainstream, they're not really as accepted by the mainstream, and so on and so forth. There is a tendency, and that is also natural, to overcompensate and overprotect others that identify as members of your niche community. So there may be people that are reluctant to isolate.
Definitely.
People, yeah, people that say they are, so and so, they are fairies, they are, I don't know, like my mind refuses to bring more examples, but and then they will come across, by defending them, they will come across as actually endorsing what these deviant people are doing, rather than how easy that would be if they found it in them to just isolate these people and say, you know what, you are not a member of this community because you are doing these things that are not part of whatever it is we do. So, and I think that's where the problem lies. Like, there is a latency in response to when people are outed, and other members say, leave him alone, blah blah blah. So.
Yeah, that happened. I mean, it happened with the gay movement back in the queer movement, I suppose you'd say, back in the 70s. I think they had the group, the Boy Love group, tried to get themselves on the ticket, and initially they were successful. They got themselves represented by the queer movement, so it became they had that legitimacy. It was very short-lived, but it's still used by anti-gay people as a way of demonizing homosexuality and saying, yeah, because they supported, this boy love stuff, which, they never really did. It was just this a very, very short time when that had snuck in there. So, yeah, like every community has to deal with this kind of bullshit. And it just comes down to how they do deal with it. And in the example of the homosexual community, they absolutely got rid of that. And, that was not part of, being a homosexual at all. It's not part of it. Which, is the right thing. And, yeah, in the furry community, zoophilia and any of those other things are not part of that community. And yeah, I haven't really heard of any cases myself, but yeah, I'm sure that does exist. Like you were saying, we have freaks in every, and as Tant said, they go where they can get away with it, or they can perceive that they can get away with this stuff. So yeah, it's self-selecting. Yeah, well, that's that kind of side of it. I think we've sort of established that sort of thing is definitely not what this poor guy was part of. What was his name again? Grey Muzzle.
Grey Muzzle. Should we make a letter, like a group letter, inviting him back to Drunkduck?
We should.
He could come back.
Come home, Grey Muzzle. Bring back Tina's story. Bring it back to everyone, and they can enjoy your magnificent little tale. It was like, I would not have normally read it because it's there's certain genres of things that I'm not really drawn to. I'm not really drawn to fairy stuff, especially, but because Gun Wallace had done the music for it. And it was such a good piece of music, and he did recommend it. I thought I'd check it out, and I found that it was really, really cool. I would have featured it if I could, but we have policy against adult stuff. But it's a really clever, fun slice of life story about this woman who's working at the DMV. I think the vehicle licensing thing. She loses her job, and she gets in a relationship with this guy, and it's all about their growing relationship together and their highs and lows as a couple. And she just happens to be an anthropomorphic poodle, and he happens to be a human. But it's fully a normal story, and it's just a really good story. It's mainly about their lives, and the sexual element is there, but it's not a main thing. So it's a shame not to have that on our site anymore. And I think that's one of the big strengths of Drunkduck too, is that, you know, we let people express the full range of human sexuality, normal human sexuality, on our site. And, you know, we fully support that kind of stuff. If you want to be a furry, if you want to be, you know, like not a furry, if you want to be like, do adult furry stuff, that's perfectly okay. Or if you want to do a porn comic, that's fine. You can show it on our site because we support that full range of, you know, normal human interaction. And that's a good, healthy thing. We don't want people to censor themselves or to be stuck in this, you know, Google, Apple, Facebook world where, you know, we pretend even human nipples are something too disgusting for us to see if they belong on a female. You know, it's bizarre. Exactly. It's bizarre, this world that we're turning the online world into.
The general rule of thumb that I think the duck has, and I think people should have in general, is don't impose on others anything, and stay away from non-consensual stuff, and then live and let live. That's it.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
And I just want to say too that you know, we're also not sweeping the issue of rape under the rug either. It's just that this was something that had to be dredged up and made and distorted into something that wasn't actually implied. And if there would have been more of a sort of more evidence that there was actually something going on, you know, that he had fantasies of hurting people and stuff, then I would definitely say, like, yeah, get him out of there. You don't want people in power who have rape fantasies, you know, because and granted, you know, victims of rape also can have rape fantasies and stuff. But I mean, to have somebody predatory in power or who has the ability to be predatory, is just never good. It's just that in this case, the evidence that would be needed to condemn him more as a predatory person, I haven't seen it, you know? So in this case, I really am compelled to chalk it up to just election time party politic bullshit. Yeah. So,
plus the fact that the whole rape thing becomes like, oh my God, we don't tolerate it and it's terrible, and, you know, as it should be. But if it is about someone we need to stay in the saddle, or someone that we are endorsing for whatever reason, for financial gains or other deals and so on and so forth, then suddenly rape is not as much of an issue, and then we start asking ourselves, well, maybe the victim wanted it, and now she's shaking down, or he is shaking down for money or stuff and stuff, blah blah blah. What I'm saying is that I am very jaded when it comes to the whole, I am intolerant of this thing, whatever thing, insert blank, whatever it is, from rape to whatever else, from politicians, because usually it is just the gimmick, the weapon they use to attack someone else or to gain popularity, and when it stops shooting their purposes, somehow it disappears. Even in the Salem trials, you have this pattern. Like when the girls accused someone of a higher status, someone that had more political and social power than the other poor victims, then suddenly the girls lost their credibility. Finding witches. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. We have that bit of a popularity thing, don't we? If we like the person, then it didn't happen. But if we, dislike them, then everything about them that people say is true. Or it's not that it didn't happen, it just wasn't bad. Or there must have been some justification for it. That happens like with certain sports people. I remember oh, this Chris Brown, oh my God, this guy had like dog fighting. God, evil, nasty man, we hate him. I think that was the guy, I can't remember. Anyway, or maybe it was someone who beat up his fiance. I can't, one of these celebrity people. Like, oh my God, he's bad. And then there's Kobe Bryant, this famous basketball player. He was accused of rape early in his career. And oh my God, he's just the god. When he died, people were going, oh my God, he's the best ever. But he was properly accused of rape. This was not like a something that was ephemeral or unimportant. This was a big frickin' deal. And oh no, because we like him, and he's someone beloved, and we respect his sporting prowess, that doesn't matter anymore. So there's always that kind of stuff, which is exactly
so
what you're talking about.
I really am very, very skeptical and very reluctant to believe the sincerity. That said, despite the motivation, I will look at the evidence that is being put forward. And if it does, quote unquote, make the cut that this person is most likely doing things that are unacceptable for for civilized society. And when I say civilized society, I mean a society that respects human rights. So no society that we live in. Anyway, then I will take distances and reject certain things. But I will not look at the accuser as like a hailed hero and champion for victims, because that is very rarely the case.
Yeah. They're just cynically using stuff, especially if it's a politician, which is people who are usually have ulterior motives for what they do. Especially if it's part of a smear campaign. Smear campaigns, you're not going to get much truth out of those things or much sincerity. It's always like that's their tool to use while they're using it, and then it's chucked away afterwards. It's no longer required. And I believe that was the case in here. Yeah. Nasty, dirty kind of crap politics. So probably best for Councilman what was his name? Councilman Grey Muzzle. But he's out of it. Yes, Councilman Chamberlain Grey Muzzle, that he is no longer in that world. But still, we don't know what happens to Tina's story and why it's offline, but we think it is related to this kind of stuff, because obviously there's huge fallout whenever this kind of stuff happens. But we will try and write an open letter to Mr. Grey Muzzle and see if it'll ever come back. Maybe he had some sort of conversion therapy and he's no longer into furry stuff anymore. Maybe there's that sort of thing.
Don't even joke about it.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't know. That, like, you have people who like have a lot of sex. They go to sex therapy, and they say, "Oh yeah, I was wrong, and I've changed my ways." When of course,
Conversion therapy is different though than
exactly that has nothing to do with conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is a torture.
Yeah.
and it's not a therapy,
Well, I just meant
and it
that
doesn't.
sex therapy is not
That's
real either. That's another
uh,
another
like
made up
sex
thing.
therapy. And I have to say, like now you are forcing to go on my psych.
I'm gonna step out of the room for a little bit. You guys have fun.
But sex therapy is a valid thing that happens when people have problems not with sex, but not with having or not having sex, but the whole idea and engagement in the act of sex interferes with their daily living to a point where they cannot function as individuals. That's what sex therapy is all about, and it has nothing to do with your kinks or your types or what have you.
Yeah, the proper
So, yeah.
stuff. I just meant those people who, those big celebrities who make a big deal about being addicted to sex. When they get caught with a prostitute or something like that, then they say, "Oh, it's because I was addicted to sex." So then they go to this, this sanitarium, retreat or something like this. What's the kind of thing they do for drugs? It's like a detox or all that kind of stuff. So that's what they get forced into, but it's not a real thing. It's just like they're not what you're talking about. This is one of these like publicity things in order to make them, to rehabilitate them in the eyes of people. Like Hugh Grant when he was caught with Divine Brown, that prostitute. And they claim, it's an addiction. I need help. So it's
But you know what, though? That's also hypocritical. If you're going to have a society where buying sex is accepted, um, then calling out people for going out and buying sex is a hypocrisy. That's something that I believe, just as I believe that people buying sex do not need sex therapy. They need other kind of therapy because it means a whole range of different things that, the subject is not the subject of this cast, but it has a lot more to do with very low self-esteem and a need to impose yourself on a person than actual sexual attraction or anything that has to do with sex as like within the context of sex itself, I'm saying. So it's a different pattern. It's a whole different ball game. And it is an addiction, but not like as it is being framed. And that's why it is not cured usually. So yeah. Anyway, that's a different thing. That's a different discussion. So
it is. Oh well. Anyway, this has been an interesting talk about whatever happened to Tina Story and the problems of being a politician and smear campaigns and using on people's online stuff against them in order to destroy their lives, which is it's a nasty thing to do. So, thank you guys for being part of QUACKCAST number 522.
thank you too.
Without
Bye.
Bye-bye.